All right, so this is a, I think it's 2006 or 7 Pontiac G6. And he had called me and said his rack and pinion's out. Someone had looked at it and told him his rack and pinion's bad. It's leaking power steering fluid real bad. So I got it up in the air and got it underneath there, and I found something a little bit different than the rack and pinion. It's kind of an interesting issue. I'm not sure how this happened. But anyway, I'll get you under there and kind of show you what's going on. And then I'm going to try to figure out maybe why it happened and see if I can get some parts for it and get it back on the road. So this won't be a rack and pinion job, but it will have some things related to the rack and pinion involved with it. But anyway, I'll get you under there and we'll take a look at it. So here we are under it. You can see it's just soaked with power steering fluid, or I hope you can see it. It's all over the frame. It's actually dripping off the exhaust here. It's all over the frame over here. So I'm going to get you in there and show you exactly what's going on. You can see the exhaust is super wet. And if you look, see if I can get you in there. Here's your hose right here. I don't know if it's showing up. Should be. You can see, well, I hope you can see. The hose right there is up against the exhaust, and the exhaust burnt a hole through the insulation right here and right into the hose. So as soon as you start the car up and it's got fluid in it, it just gushes out of this hole right here. So that's your high pressure line that goes from the pump down to your rack. And for some reason it's up against the exhaust here, and the exhaust burned a big hole into it. So we're going to go ahead and pull this line off. Maybe see why this line's up against here. Maybe there's a broken, I think there's only one retainer for this hose. So I'm not sure. I'll see if I can figure out what's going on with it or why it did that. But we have to get it loose from the rack and from the power steering pump up top. So that's the plan of attack. I'm going to go ahead and pull the driver's side wheel off and take the retainer off on the frame over there and start on the pump side and work our way down to the rack and pinion side. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do here is take this belt off and go ahead and get this power steering pump loose so we can get down to the line. Usually I use a tool like this, easier to get into, but anything with a that you can get in there will work. These are pretty handy if you don't have one or have seen one, for getting belts, tensioners loose. So now the belt's off. There's usually 3 bolts to hold this power steering pump on. Looks like there is, and it looks like it's 13 mil. So I'm going to go ahead and get those tools, and we'll start taking this pump loose so we can pull it up and get to that line. Alright, so there's 3 holes hold this power steering pump in. If you rotate your pulley to an open area, you should be able to get your ratchet or socket in there and go ahead and pull those loose. So there's 3 of these. I'm going to go ahead and pull the other 2 out. Just rotate your pulley down to where you can get your socket in there and pull those out, and then this pump should pull up, but I'll double check that. I'm pretty sure it does. Alright, so you get those 3 bolts out, you can pull this pump up and get yourself a 17 millimeter open in, and you're going to lose some fluid, so you might want to put a pan under here or something, and go ahead and break the high pressure hose line loose. Kind of awkward with everything. Shouldn't be super hard to break loose. It's just kind of in a little bit of an awkward position to get to. So anyway, it's coming loose. I'm going to go ahead and finish taking it loose, and then we'll go underneath and take it loose from the rack. I'm not sure if I have to loosen the rack up a little bit to get to that 10 millimeter bolt down there or not. I can't remember. So Usually I change the racks on these, not the lines. So anyway, go ahead and take your 17. Now the one that's bolted in is your high pressure line. That's the one that's hitting the exhaust. We have the low pressure line, and those usually don't go bad or don't have an issue because it's just a return line. There's not a lot of pressure on them. But I mean, this high pressure line went bad because it was laying against the exhaust. So, but normally, if you have a power steering leak, it's usually the high pressure line. So that's the one on the bottom here, towards the front of the pulley. It's the only one that has a 17 millimeter nut. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and finish taking that off, and then we'll go underneath the car and see what we have to do to take the line loose from the rack. All right, now I'm on the back side of the rack here. You can see my hand. The lines come into the back side of the rack, and you can see them through the wheel well. You can see a little bit better through the wheel well. You can see I already got the line loose here, but what you do is you get, or what I do, is you just get a ratcheting box end. The flex head makes it a little bit easier. And you take out the 10 millimeter bolt that's in between the two lines, and then get a screwdriver and just kind of pry on the lines off the sway bar here. So got it loose now. So now I'm going to snake it out of the car. The thing I'm worried about is these are the seals on these racks are kind of a press in. You have to use a socket or something to press them in. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that with the rack still in the car, so I'm not sure what the procedure is on that yet, as far as the seal goes, because I believe they're a one-time use seal. I'm not sure. I have to look it up, but that's a little worrisome. I haven't gotten the new part yet. It hasn't been delivered yet, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and snake this thing out, and we'll take a look at it and see the carnage, and then I'm going to do a little research on that seal, find out what I have to do. Hopefully I don't have to pull the whole rack out just to put a seal in. So anyway, I'm going to pull this line the rest of the way out. It should be detached, and snake it out of there, and then we'll take a look at it on the. All right, so I got it kind of laid out here on the workbench. This is the end that goes into the rack. And you can see here, this is the factory heat shield, prevent it from burning through the exhaust. And you can see here it's got a huge hole. So it did its job as long as it could, but nothing's going to protect you from the exhaust forever if it's laying up against there. So I don't know if the aftermarket one comes with one, so we'll go ahead and pull this off real quick. Take it loose. And here's the second protective cover, and right here there's a hole, so that's where it was gushing out at. And you can see you know, it had this cover here which has a hole in it, which this is plastic, it's not going to prevent it. And you have this heavy one here. So anyway, I'm still waiting for the new part. So yeah, that's it. That's where our problem is. Doesn't need a rack. Someone told me it needed a rack and pinion, but no, it just needs this. And we're gonna have to figure out a way to. I don't know. I didn't see anything wrong. I don't know if this got bent a little bit, and that's why it's hitting the exhaust, or maybe it's got a bad motor mount or something weird like that. I have to look into it a little. So we don't want this to happen again. So I'm gonna investigate that a little bit and wait for the part and pick it back up after it gets here. Alright, so the new line came in. It did come with a new seal, but it only came for a new seal for this line. And we also have the return line out. So it comes with these seals here. And what they do is you just press them in by hand, and then when you tighten this down, it presses the seal all the way in. The thing is, we don't have one for the return line, so I don't know if I'm going to get another one or if I'm going to hope that put it in and see if it'll leak. I guess it won't be that big of a deal if it does leak, as far as I won't take anything extra off, just take the 10 millimeter back off. And it does come with the seal for the other end, which is this end here. So anyway, that's the deal with to get the old seal out. I'm going to use a pick like this and grab it. Just make sure you don't want to scratch up the bore of the rack. So anyway, that's where we're at on this. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that seal out, set this one in by hand, and then when you tighten this bolt down, it's supposed to crush this in there. And anyway, so we'll get that in there and start routing this and get this thing back together. Alright, so one thing that might help you when you're putting those lines back in is I did take out the long bolt for the rack. It goes right here in the frame. It's 18 millimeter. There's a nut on the top of the rack right here. So that'll allow you to move this rack back and forth. You can leave the steering on all that, but it just makes it easier to move this rack around. And I don't know if you can tell right there, it's moving a little bit. It gives you enough room to get those lines back in there and get them lined up and bolted down without kinking them. So anyway, I got the lines in, torqued down. I'm going to go ahead and put this big rack bolt back in, and we'll move to the top. All right, once you got the bottom hooked up, go ahead and put a new seal on your line on the end that goes to the pump. Just slips over like that, and then we'll go ahead and get this pump and this line back together, 17 mil. Get it tightened down, and then we'll set this back in there. All right, when you go to hook that high pressure line up, go ahead and start on your pump, and then kind of set your pump in where it's supposed to be, and go ahead and route this and turn this the way it's supposed to be. So mine's already in there, started and tight. But when you're doing yours, make sure that you just start it and then kind of set this where it goes, and that'll kind of set these lines where they go. If they're hooked up on anything or caught up, you can move them with it still loose. You can still move this line around to where it needs to be. So once you got it set in where it's supposed to be, go ahead and pull it back up, tighten it, go ahead and torque it down, and then we'll set this back in and get the 3 bolts back in and get the belt back on. So all I'm doing now is just kind of starting these 3 bolts for the pump. And don't tighten one down real tight before you get the other 2 started. Make sure you get all of them started. You'll have to start them down fairly good to turn the pulley, but just don't tighten them all the way. You want to get them in there far enough where you can still spin the pulley, but not have it so tight that you can't move this around a little bit to start the rest of them. So I'm going to go ahead and put the other 2 in and torque those down, and then we'll put the belt back on. Alright, so all 3 bolts are in and torqued down. I went ahead and put the belt back on already. I didn't take the belt all the way off. I just kind of laid it off to the side when I pulled this off. So if you don't take your belt all the way off, usually you can just kind of figure out where it goes and put it back. If your belt falls off for whatever reason, or you take it all the way off, if you do just a simple Google search of your car, your engine, and the year, it should come up and to put in belt diagram. One of the images should come up, one of the first few that come up, and it'll show you the belt diagram. That's the best advice I can give you on that. Once in a while people ask me what a belt diagram is for their car, and to be honest with you, I don't even usually go to ShopKey Pro or anything. I just go straight to Google, and if the image isn't on the car, some of the cars have it, you know, by the emission sticker here or whatever. If they don't have it, then the best bet is to go on Google, put in the year, the model, make, and your engine size, and it should come up right away. So anyway, I got it all hooked up. I haven't put fluid in it yet. I'm going to go back under it and see what I can do to prevent this from happening again. Looks like it's pretty close to the exhaust again, which it's supposed to be because it has that shield on there. But I don't want it touching the exhaust, so I might get some big zip tie or something, figure something out so it doesn't happen again. It looks like the motor mount's okay on this car, so I'm not sure. I'm going to do a little more digging, but I'm going to go back under there real quick and make sure that this new hose isn't hitting the exhaust, and then we'll go over filling it up and how we bleed it and all that stuff. Alright, so you can kind of see it smoking all that old power steering fluid off the exhaust. What I do on these, you can look in there and see how foamy it is. What I do on these, I fill them up almost to the top, not to the top of this, but almost to the top of the reservoir here, because we lost all of our fluid, so it's gonna take some down with it. Anyway, I fill it almost to the top, and then you know, some people say different things. I've read where GM says with the engine off, turn the wheels back and forth, lock to lock. I normally usually just fill it up, make sure it's full. I'll start it. The pump's going to be noisy no matter what. It'll usually suck down a little bit, and then I just keep it topped off on the stick itself. I don't top it off to the top anymore. After I put the initial in, it sucks down. I just keep it full. And like I said, you can see here, it's real foamy. So that's all the air bubbles escaping from the system. So my concern with this particular car is I don't know how long he drove it with it leaking or what happened, the situation was. So I'm worried about this pump being bad, but it has been getting quieter. It usually takes about 10-15 minutes. Like I said, normally I'll fill it to the top, I run it back and forth while it's running, and that'll get a lot of the air bubbles out. And it'll kind of leave the cap off or leave it like this so that the air can escape out of it. Just don't tighten it all the way down. And then, anyway, with this one, I'll probably take it out and drive it for 10, 15, 20 minutes and see if the pump gets any quieter. Like I said, I'm a little concerned about it because I don't know the situation with this car as far as how long it was driven with this low and all that good stuff. I know that someone told him it was the rack. I guess when he got inspected, they told him he had a bad rack. And that was a long time ago, and he never got it fixed. And the rack's not leaking. What it is, that line, I guess, just kept getting worse and worse to where it finally got a big hole in it. And anyway, so I'm not sure how many times this particular pump's been ran low, so we'll have to see. I'm going to have to take it out for a drive and see if it'll quiet up. It's not leaking anything under. So I'll go ahead and start this up and kind of show you the sound it makes. I'm sure most of you know what a power steering pump sounds like when it's low. This one's not low, of course, it's just got a lot of air in it. So we'll start it up and check it out. You see there, it's a little bit low. So I get the cap on it. All right. So anyway, you can see there's a little bit low, and you can see that it's real foamy. It's actually better than it was. It's starting to sound a little better. The inside's all foamy still, so it's still got quite a bit of air in the system. So I'm just gonna go and take it for a drive, probably 10-15 minutes, and try to get the air out of the system and see what happens with this pump. But that's pretty much the basics of changing a high pressure line on one of these G6s. I really thought it was going to be a rack today. I was all geared up to do that. I actually almost ordered the part before I even started on the job. I'm glad I didn't, because it ended up being aligned against the exhaust there. So anyway, I guess that's it on changing the high pressure power steering line. And of course, after you're done with doing all this, make sure you have no leaks anywhere. And then take it for a shake and see if it's leaking anywhere after that. And then, you want to check your fluid occasionally while you're trying to bleed the system out, because you'll never get the noise to go away if it's low on fluid. So I guess that's about it on this one. It's a little disappointing it wasn't the rack. It would have been a nice video to make, but we found the problem, we got it fixed, and we'll get this hoopty back on the road. Actually, looking at this here, looks like he's got a split in his. Looks like he's got a big split in his brake booster line. I'll have to check that real quick for him. But anyway. Alright, so I took it out about 10-15 minutes. You can hear it, there's no noise coming from the pump anymore. And it's on full or about halfway. There's no more foam in there. It's like all the air is gone now. Very few bubbles. So I think we're good on this one as far as the power steering pump. It should be okay. Just never know when you run them low. Like I said, I had no idea how long he ran it low or whatever. But you can hear that, or hopefully you can hear that. It's running. And you can't hear the pump, so it's good to go. So anyway, I guess you know, again, I'm doing a job where it's very hard to get the camera in there. It's hard enough to get my hand in there, much less a camera. So hopefully I showed you enough here to where you can be able to do it yourself if you need to. It's not a super hard job. It's pretty tight down there by the rack, especially where you get the lines out. The best thing on that is just take that one rack bolt out and move the rack forward a little bit. That should give you enough room to get it slipped in and out. And then the rest of it's all pretty basic. So yeah, it would have been a better video if I could show more, but like I said, it's so tight down there, it's very hard to show anything. So anyway, I think this one's good. We're going to let it burn off some more power steering fluid. It's got power steering fluid all over the frame, and I cleaned it up as best I could, but it really just needs to go to a car wash or something. It's smoking pretty good. Just fluid, just, you know, residual fluid still on the exhaust and everywhere else. So anyway, it needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but it's good to go. So we'll drive this around a little bit more and get this hoopty back to the owner, and we'll go on to the next one. Thanks you for watching, and hopefully you'll subscribe, and we'll see you on videos to come.